Hi, welcome again to the Growth Engine with Ryan and Trice. Another week of talking about your business and its growth. Ryan, what's up, buddy?
Hey, we got a show today that's going to blow your mind, Trice. It's going to blow your mind.
Every week blows my mind a little bit.
It, I
Dive deep.
mean, audience can't handle it. It's too much. It's too much, man.
Absolutely. So what's our topic for today?
We're going to talk about one-on-one meetings and how to do these right. It's my biggest question I get when I do coaching, and should I be having these one-on-one meetings with people, and what should they be? Should they include? What things should we do? So we're gonna talk about that. But first, I got a question for you.
Sure.
How well do you know you're a music artist? Pretty good.
I know my music. Well, it depends on the category. This is a big open-ended discussion here, but it depends on the category. I would say I'm pretty good, except pop music, probably. I'm not great there. So
How are you with rap?
I'll also probably not great there, but I'll take a good guess.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Songs with the lyrics one-on-one in them.
Oh God.
Here,
No, I got nothing for you on this one for sure.
here we go.
Okay. Nope. I got nothing.
One-on-one, Luke Skywalker and the Two Live Crew. It's 80s rap. It was great stuff.
I knew you were going to get me on this one because
Yes.
this is really going to show my age and also my lack of experience in certain categories of music for sure.
Yeah. So they had that album called As Nasty as They Want to Be.
Yeah.
And then they realized they couldn't be as nasty as they wanted to be because court shut them down.
Yeah, they literally got sued by everyone.
Yeah. And so for years you didn't even hear their music. They just wiped off the face of the earth.
Yes.
All right. Second song. You ready?
Okay.
Second song with the lyrics one-on-one, our topic for the day.
One-on-one. All right.
All right. Make sure you can hear this one.
Oh, this is not rap, but this is Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates.
Okay, well, you're in my grade school category now. Hall & Oates, man.
Right.
I often call these guys my one of my guilty pleasures because they're just so unique and white R&B guys, basically. Like they're from Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, they got soul. I mean, they're all over.
Soul.
They're one of my favorite groups from back in the day. So now
That's
we're really
funny.
dating ourselves.
Yeah, both of us exactly. But I think it's on Amazon Music. They don't have a channel, but obviously you can just do by artist. And I often I will put on the Hall & Oates channel and just let it play for a couple hours. And my wife is like, "What are you doing?" Like,
Okay. You really want to, okay, this is the way not to go to sleep early. I had this night, my ex-wife and I, we decided to start naming Hall & Oates songs. And we started like at 10 o'clock. I think it was 2 hours later.
That's a trap right there, man.
You go forever. I mean, you once you start naming one, they just start rolling out. And you're like, there's no way that a group had this many hits. No way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Beatles. I mean, it was nuts.
Yeah. I tell you, I had a friend who's a ridiculous, huge Hall & Oates fan. Seen him a dozen times probably. I've never seen him, and I think about this every once in a while. There's a couple of old bands like that I'm like, oh yeah, that would still be really cool to see because the music is not performance related necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really, really great, and the music itself is really fantastic. And so yeah, they're one of my people I would probably see if I got a chance to again.
Yeah. I keep missing them. They come to Kansas City all the time. All right, last song, and then we'll get to it.
Okay. All right.
And hold on, people. Hold on. We're just trying to have a little fun here, okay?
Nothing says a good time like us being bad at this.
Yeah. So, okay, you're going to shoot yourself for this one because this one you should have known.
Oh, is this George Michael or is it Wayne?
George Michael.
It's George Michael.
One-on-one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one because this is weird. My second guilty pleasure is George Michael. I mean, the guy's fantastic. I mean, fantastic artist of his time. I was just listening to Freedom the other day. I was in my car and I have XM, and I was like, if you listen to the music lyrics on the Freedom, and he's basically like, I'm tired of being pigeonholed by MTV and what people think I need to be. I want to be, you know, open about my life or whatever. I'm like, what a great point. Like,
Wow.
just be able to do what you want to do and say and be who you are and all that stuff. I mean, maybe it was harder to do that in the 80s than I thought it was. I thought the 80s was
That's
pretty free.
that's really deep. I mean, I just want to be a good father figure.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well
All right.
played.
Enough of this tomfoolery. We got to get going.
All right.
All right. One-on-one meetings. Look,
This
it
is
has nothing.
about what our one-on-one meetings are like.
Look, one-on-one when you're using it in songs is about sex, and leave sex out of your one-on-one meetings. All right. So
100%.
let's not go there. It's an HR nightmare, and I don't know anything about that.
Me
Neither
either.
do you, Trice. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So the one-on-one meetings. I get asked this, and I actually just got this question last week. Should I be doing one-on-one meetings? What's included? And I said, well, the answer to that is yes, you should be doing them. But I first had to walk him through so he really truly understood what other type of meetings there were, so that it would more define of what a one-on-one meeting is not. And so I said, okay, well, there's leadership meetings, and so I teach my clients, I teach them a specific agenda that I like that is very productive in
Right.
how they do their leadership meetings, and so that's really styled for a group input, and everybody gets heard. The production meetings, I've been in a lot of these over the years in marketing. They're production meetings. You come with the schedule of the work you have in front of you for that week, and you talk about how you're going to get it done and any issues you have, right? And everybody knows what's in the hopper. Okay, simple. Okay, you have your standard like department meetings, right? They can be more like a leadership meeting, but department meetings are usually like idea meetings, could be brainstorming, could be staffing type of situations and how to get the work done, those types of things. So you have standard meetings. You have a stand-up. A stand-up, people get confused with a one-on-one meeting and a stand-up a lot. A stand-up is when you need like consecutive, almost every morning or the same time every day. You have people, it's a small team that you have assigned to a specific project or goal or a project that you've got to knock out quickly, and it's all hands on deck. And we're going to stand up every morning and we're going to run through, what'd you do yesterday on this project to make it move forward? What are you going to do today? And are there any roadblocks that you have with this that we can like make sure we get past like right away? Because we can't have this project slow down, right? So that's those meetings.
Mm-hmm.
A one-on-one meeting is all about the employee that you're meeting with. It's their time. So you go into these meetings thinking I work for them. And the one-on-ones, most of the time when I come into a situation, they say, yeah, we've been doing one-on-ones. Most of the time, those one-on-ones are a CEO or a manager meeting with his people and telling them what he wants out of them.
Yep. 100%.
Have you been in companies where they do these one-on-ones before?
Here's what's funny is I was thinking about our topic today, and what you do really well with your clients is talk a lot about not just the process, which we've covered a lot in the show already, and we will continue to cover, but also meetings and structures of meetings. And you have a cadence, and you also have different meeting types, like we've just outlined, which I'm really glad you went through those, because my experience, which is your question, right, is my experience has been most one-on-ones are more departmental manager type meetings with a person of what's going on with your area of focus and what are my expectations as a manager, and not about, and it's a blend. It's like, it's about you, this is your time to ask questions or give me feedback or give me an update where you are, but also the other way around. And they can be very productive, but the focus is blended, and it's not, one dimensional almost, where like you would almost want it to be. And I don't know if it's always great for the employee they feel empowered to have those honest conversations. But so you're right. In my experience, no, companies do this badly. Frankly, they're not doing one-on-ones like this at all, which
Right.
may inhibit people from having a really good feel of like, I have the ability to say what I want to say and be open to my culture with my manager and be transparent. And maybe they're not. So
Yeah. So I got a story on this one. And I had one-on-ones with the CEO, and I was well prepared for it. And the reason why I was well prepared for it was because he'd missed the last two. So this is my first one-on-one in almost a month with the CEO. And so I've got criteria. I'm going to this meeting. I've got an agenda. I've got things written down on notebook paper. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I have a new idea that I wanted to put past him. And so I go into this meeting and he says, "Hey, what do you got? Shoot, go." And so I start going through this, and then I hit on my idea that I wanted to propose. And I had everything done on a one sheeter. It's all laid out, graphics, my research, why we need to do it, everything there. And I said, "So what do you think? Can you greenlight this? Can I move forward on this project?" And he gets off of his treadmill, and he goes over and he starts whiteboarding all the things that I already have on the one sheeter. And that I'm saying one sheeter, which one sheet with all the details on it, right? And he figures everything out that I actually already have written on that page, and he's whiteboarding. He's just walking it through his own mind.
Yeah, he needs to do it visually for himself to like
bingo,
understand it and get his head around it and say, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So, yeah. So he gets the
treadmill part was a little weird, but the rest of it I totally get. So
yeah. Well, so he gets done. The more he's into doing whiteboarding this and trying to figure it out, like he's getting frustrated. And he gets done. He puts the marker down. He says, "Hey," he says, "Look, I'm paying you to do this. Like, why am I having to draw out all the answers on the board here for you?"
And you're like,
and I'm like, "It's on the page. It's right there. You just didn't look at what I gave you." And so, and so it was a little frustrating. I think both of us were frustrated, I guess, at that point. But it was a one-on-one meeting that was kind of hijacked. And then the rest of that meeting was basically what he had built up over the last month, because he hadn't talked to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he just spewed everything that was in his head over the last month. What do you think the results are of that situation?
It was a shit show. It came out and you were like all over the place probably. And frustrated as well.
Yeah. And
it wasn't constructive for him either. I mean, because he, you know, like one, you caught him on treadmill time. I'd have been pissed. Like, you're not going to focus on this at all. And also, you have this giant list of things because we haven't talked in a month, and to be organized about them in any way, shape, or form would have been nice, as opposed to just be like, a what I call meeting bomb, where just you pull the pin and just throw it, and you're like, here you go, here's all your shit. Like, it's so dumb. It's bad meeting management. It was bad leadership necessarily, because I don't know.
Oh no, it was bad. It was bad leadership.
I'm sure it was, but
it was bad. We said we was going to be honest to our audience. It was bad leadership.
It was, because as a CEO, you should understand, like, that's a really bad way to try to communicate with someone about all the things going on, like, let alone being on the damn treadmill while you're trying to do this. Like,
so
ridiculous.
The outcome of this is that, I mean, I go back to he missed the other meetings. So yes, he had all this stuff built up, and he didn't do a good job of emailing things either. So it was his show when I showed up. It was what he wanted to really go over, and he didn't have the patience to really go over what I had brought to the table. And so my number one key takeaway here for the listeners today is when you go into one-on-one, you're thinking about that you work for them and you're there to support them. They're supposed to bring the agenda. They are supposed to bring the things that are on their mind that they want to get resolved. because you want happy employees and you want them to be able to have this time with you one-on-one to solve problems that they have, to prove things, to if you have something you want them to prove or sign off on. It is, it could be personal. There could be some personal things that are on here that you want to talk about that's affecting your work. Then you wanted to just let them know that. And
Yeah.
that's okay too. I know that I've seen some formats that they say you should talk about personal stuff on these one-on-ones. Well, you know what? If the employee wants to talk about personal stuff, I think that they can.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I
It's
always
personal.
kind of,
It's their decision in a lot of
it's
ways.
their decision if they want. I always try to support. I try not to give marital advice. Yeah, I try not. That's one category I probably can't give anyway.
Oh,
But
always a good choice not to, but
yeah. I
whatever.
mean, you probably want to stay out of telling them how to run their lives, right? But they bring the list of things, because when they leave, the goal of this meeting is they've got it all out of their head in front of you.
Yep.
You know all these things, and they could be coworker issues. They could be having an issue with a coworker, and
Absolutely.
you can help them solve that. Your leadership and experience can help them work through how to make those relationships better. And
Yeah.
if you have to get the other person involved, you can, but usually you want that person's permission to do that. But the agenda is strongly brought by the employee.
Yeah, I like this a lot. To be honest, I've not done even myself like a great job with being clear which meetings are important within the marketing department, like which meetings are important, what our meetings are going to be, what their purpose is. It's funny. I've had typically a one-on-one type of meeting with each person. Each person has had an area of focus, so it's more about like what their area of focus is. It often has, you know, personal or personnel related issues in it, and then it often has, my agenda built into it as well. And then departmental meetings, where for some people the departmental meeting is very valuable because it's a chance to update the entire team with where they are on certain things. But other people in the meeting who will just like almost kind of sabotaging the meeting because of their lack of caring about what anybody else has going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found them to be like, I'm not gonna do them anymore, because this one person clearly hates departmental meetings so much they're willing to sabotage it for everyone else, which makes me look like an asshole. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do away with them and only do departmental meeting or individual meetings, and which is okay. And because any kind of like team management sorts of things, housekeeping type stuff, you can do a lot of that via email. You don't necessarily need a meeting for that. And I'm a big advocate of not having a meeting for everything. But I love your point here, and I think the key for me has always been, you might have a format in which you want them to follow, but it's their meeting. But I do like at the same time, like, hey, at the end of every agenda, leave an item of open things for me to ask questions of other things that might not necessarily have been on your agenda for today's meeting. And, just an open dialogue of like other stuff that might be going on or whatever. Or if you're really, really organized as a manager, send them those items ahead of time and be like, hey, I'd like, for you and I to have a chance to discuss these things on your weekly one-on-one, just to make sure we're on the same page. I just want to understand where we're at with those things. That's fine too. You can add stuff to their agenda, because really all you're asking them to do is, this is your time. I want also to be your time to be used for helping me keep up to date with what you have going on these different things. It's still productive, but it's, again, you're just being clear with what some of the things you might want, but it's on their agenda and their time, and they're initiating it. It's their agenda. So
yeah. And there's two. Yeah, you bring up a good point. You're talking about like having the items that you'd like to discuss. I always like to have those items that if they don't have a lot to discuss, that I can present a couple of topics or a couple of things that maybe it's things going on that it's like, hey, let's use this time to do this.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to like think about that is time to use. It's your time. It's time to use for us one-on-one, no matter what, right? And so let's not waste it. You can choose to, if you don't have a lot to go over, to skip it. You could do that, and that's okay. It's okay. But I always really caution on skipping them, because if you miss meetings or skip meetings, you're not saying you. It's more than just saying the meetings doesn't need to happen, and it starts to feel like you're not important.
Yes.
And so I really am big on this as a father. I'm big on this as a business leader. Is I have to spend X amount of time with each one of my people to let them know that they're important. And because if we don't spend time together, speaking of marriages earlier, you don't spend time with your wife, right? Eventually it causes problems. You have to have those times, set times that you do stuff together, just one on one without the kids, right? And and so I think that's really important. Um, time here is important too. So like the length of these things is one thing that I get asked. How long should it be? No more than an hour. I like to do these somewhere between 15 minutes and 45 minutes. And that really depends on the type of work and industry you're doing. Like
Yeah.
if you're in the field, it might be 15 minutes. If you're working in the field and you're like in construction or something like that, you might just make sure that you have time, you have a day or out of the month or whatever, and you make sure you do something 15 minutes or so with that person, and that gets it. But you might have something where you have topics every week that one-on-one are important to go over, and that's going to fill up full 45 minutes. I definitely wouldn't go over an hour, because then you get into talking about things that aren't as important. I like to force the time to be very narrow so that you're only talking about the things that matter the most, but you do cover what they need to cover too. So it just means you
Yeah.
get through them quicker.
Yeah. You know, it, a lot of this depends on your industry, right? If you're in, I'll give it, or department within industry potentially.
Right.
If you're in IT or development or some, technology, stand-ups are really, really common on projects,
Mhm.
right? So it could be you have a whole bunch of stand-ups throughout the week, and so you don't necessarily need long one-on-ones with people, because that one-on-one time is really more about gauging where they are as a person and an employee, because you cover so much in these stand-up meetings, and so you don't necessarily need the same kind of thing in your one-on-one. Versus like marketing is a great example. We might have a production meeting every week that's like stuff.
Right.
And a lot of things get hashed out in those meetings, unfortunately, and we don't do stand-ups nearly as much on projects, and we probably should, because everything kind of gets boiled into the production meeting, which is not necessarily productive.
Mhm.
Um, but one-on-ones, in addition to production, that's a lot. It's a lot, depending on how many people you have. That can be a lot.
You're right.
And so your one-on-ones with people become very focused on them as people, them as employees, and the work they do, and so that could be work perfectly. But you're right. I love this idea. Like, so let me summarize first. Depending on what kind of department you're in, you know, this could vary. In leadership teams, one-on-one, an hour is almost mandatory because it's going to be deep,
Yeah.
right? Like, and at departmental levels, it might not be. If you're running a call center, you're not meeting with every single person in your call center for an hour. Like, you're
No
definitely
way.
not. That's hard. That is a hard thing to do. But um, operations is probably the same way, especially if you're in manufacturing, you're not meeting with every employee like on the line.
No.
So yeah, I mean that totally makes sense. But you do want to get that time with them too, and you might not even do that every week, in the
Yeah.
manufacturing sense. But I think the key thing you said there is that varies depending on the department, and then also like um, the value portion. You absolutely do want to keep. I mean, you're right. Like if you get disconnected from somebody for too long, they just feel like the relationship's not valuable at all, and they put that on you. They don't. There's not necessarily a lot of responsibility on their end, because especially if they're a subordinate to you in some way, it's not their job to initiate, and they feel like that's not necessarily true, but they feel that way. And if you're the CEO of a company, you need to own that, because you as owner or CEO, you're responsible for everybody below you feeling valued.
Yes.
And so if that your group of direct reports, if you don't meet with them every week, it's going to be a problem. You're that person that you like in your example. You skip 2 or 3 weeks with somebody, that person becomes your problem child immediately because you just don't have a good relationship with them. And it's on you to develop that.
And they start doing things. They lash out, and they do it all kinds of different ways. I've seen
Making
it.
decisions on their own, like whatever, like not giving you the feedback you want. I mean, there's a lot of things. Sure.
I mean, they start talking about you behind the back. They start fire starting because they're mad at you. Like, and I told somebody recently, it was a first time client, and she owns a health clinic, and it's the first time she's ever owned a company or been at this leadership level, And she was talking about these different things happening in her office, and I said, these people are lashing out at you. I said, do you know why? And she was like, because they hate me. I'm like, no, because they actually love you. They love you, and they're missing this time with you because you're not spending time with them. You're coming in and you're rushing through things. And, she says, oh my gosh, you're right. And she just, tears. She started thinking about it, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're right. She was really upset about it, and she was being hard on herself. And I was like, take it easy on yourself, like back up from this. Right. And just this is a people thing that you've got to get good at if you're going to have people work for you, and it's something you're going to have to carve out time for, because racing through the day and blurting out stuff to people is really okay here and there, but it's kind of a horrible management style, and eventually it just sounds like you're being barked at all the time versus actually having a relationship with them.
What's really common when you're the leader too is to think, I have a meeting with this person, and you kind of mentally check the box. Like, by being in the meeting and having time with them, I've given them time, and therefore they're okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, like to your point earlier, if you're not structuring that one-on-one time or leadership team or departmental, if you're not structuring those meetings appropriately, then, and also, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, committing in those meetings to being focused on them. If you're not doing that, then they don't come out of there feeling valuable. Mm-mm. They come out of there like, this wasted a fucking hour. Like, or like you did. Like, I just feel like this meeting just got hijacked. Like, I have no idea what just kicked me. Like, what just happened? And it's a super frustrating situation where a good leader is going to say, I want my one-on-ones this way. That way it's good for both of us. And it allows me to 100% focus on you while we're together. And now I can check a box because I had an opportunity to show you you're valuable to the organization, regardless of where you are in the food chain.
Yeah, you're hitting.
Probably jumping ahead, but
no, you're hitting on a point that I definitely wanted to hit on, which is this: be present, be present, and be present is like pretty simple. Shut your phone off or turn it upside down. Yeah. Do not be reading your phone while this person's talking to you about real issues that they care about, because it really upsets them. It tells them real clearly. And if you take calls, if you let other leadership burst into the door because they're quote leadership, and then they get privileged to override your one-on-one meeting, then again, you just feel so unimportant. And so, yes, you should have one-on-one meetings, and you should be present to make sure that they get that message the right way, because they can backfire easily if you're not paying attention to what they're saying.
I actually said this to you maybe last week or the week before. We have a mutual vendor friend connection, and I was on a meeting, and one of the people on this call is one of those people that is engaged for 5 minutes, and then you lost them. They're completely gone, and they're so busy that you can just see it like straight in and be like, you can hear the keys and they're typing and they're answering email to other people and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need you in this meeting. Like, there's no answer. Or the other part is like, you ask somebody to come in with a plan. You're like, I'm asking for your recommendation. Come in with a plan, come in with timing. This is our one-on-one time. I want you to tell me, as the subject matter expert, tell me what the answer is. Have a plan. Be focused. We can knock this thing out in 30 minutes. It is not a long conversation. And then to have it go differently than that just makes you go, I don't value you because you're not valuable to me. Like, you're not solving my business problem, or I have to do the work of dragging the business problem out of you and giving this meeting some structure because you're unable to do it. And
Yeah.
if you're like our audience here, we talk to CEOs a lot. If you're a CEO and you have to do that for your team, your immediate reaction is, why do I need this person on my team?
Yeah.
Like, what are they bringing to the table?
There's an example I'm going to use here,
Please.
and we purposely keep politics out of this,
100% we do. Or we
but I'm
try.
going to bring in somebody who I didn't respect him as a president, but this moment is a moment of leadership that I really thought was just a great example of this. So, George Bush is reading to a group of children in elementary school, and when the
This
Twin
is the
Towers
9/11 example.
when the Twin Towers were attacked,
Yeah.
and Secret Service comes over and whispers in his ear, that first tower was attacked, and he
You could see
doesn't
the
get
moment
up.
of him processing it. I mean, you can just see it on his face. It's like, I'm trying to compose myself,
Yeah,
keep in the moment, but also process, like, what's my action as president? This is public. This will get played I'm getting videoed right now. Like,
right.
this isn't camera phone video. The news is right there. Like, yeah.
I
remember it.
actually giving him a lot of credit in this one because I actually think he thought about the children first.
I think he really thought
he,
about the moment. I do
he was
too. I mean,
he's a father, so I mean, I think he thought, I got to finish this for these kids. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to keep composure. And he stayed the course. He did. And he then got up calmly and did his thing. And I think in leadership, when I use this example, I'm thinking about, don't let everybody else's emergencies cause you to bail on this person you're in front of.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be able to get up in a few more minutes and go take care of that.
Yeah.
Those people need to understand that when I'm in front of somebody else, respect me and respect them. And that's the culture that I'm going to develop in my company, because people matter. That's the difference between companies who say that their people matter and those that can clearly feel that they don't. And so I'm a huge fan of being present when you're in the meetings. And that was an example of that.
I am as well. I'm really bad about this, and I think anybody is nowadays, where I'm on video, my phone's right here, my email's right there. Like, knowing you got to at least turn the volume off or close your email. And people talk a lot about productivity in general as well. And one of the things they talk about a lot is turn your email off. Like, answer all your emails at the end of the day, or answer them in the
Right.
beginning of the day and at the middle of the day and at the end of the day, but don't have it open all day long. Don't be so accessible that you live in real time, because that's actually sets up a bad precedence for you as well. And I'm super guilty of this myself. But I will also say this: I think the ability of somebody to do that today is very difficult. You have to be really well organized about these one-on-ones, because and also you're like, I can't do 4 one-on-ones a day. Like, that's a lot.
Nah,
I mean,
spread them
that's
out.
just not realistic,
Yeah.
and unless you're the kind of person that's like, I'm going to do all my one-on-ones for my team in one day, and
Right.
that way it's a day of meetings, and then you have 4 days of like other stuff, and if you can schedule it that way and that works for you, I think that's fine. It seems like a lot to me.
Yeah.
I will tell you also, just as a total aside, there is a great documentary about the Bush family in which he covers that moment very openly, and he is incredibly transparent about his personal time and his life and stuff in this documentary, and it's a great watch, because you really get a good sense about him, who he is now, and
Mhm.
how much he's progressed as a person since leaving the presidency, and his relationship with his wife and his kids and other former presidents, and their camaraderie, actually, even though they've sort of in a lot of ways transcended political lines, because
Yeah.
now but they still influence, obviously, within their parties quite a bit. Um, and it's really interesting about their friendship, and I will say it's very worthwhile. And I
have to,
want to say it's maybe an HBO or a Netflix. I'm not sure which, but
I'll
either
have to
way,
check that out.
it's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Um, I have just a few more things that I
Yeah,
know our time's short today, but I want to make sure I get through.
yeah,
Is these one-on-ones, your employees should look forward to them. They should want to do these. If you're doing them right, they look forward to it. And understanding as a leader or a manager, understanding that they're looking forward to it means you treat them with the respect, right? They treat the
yeah,
time with respect. And
yeah,
so um, if you are going into this meeting and you really don't have anything, I encourage this. If you don't have anything, then take them to lunch for their one-on-one. Go on a walk. I've done these. Go on a walk and talk at the same time, get some fresh air,
yeah,
and do that. Um, do your one-on-one at the end of the day. Go out. I don't care. Have a beer. I know that HR isn't going to love this, but have a beer with them, have your one-on-one time, and then you can just get to know them better as a person. Use that time efficiently, and
yeah,
just the important part is that you spent time with them and they've had the opportunity to voice concerns and things that are important to them. um, I also like to put like their personal goals, whether they're personal goals or personal business goals. So sometimes I'll be checking in on, well, you were going to read these 1, 2 books, this quarter. How is that going? Where are you at on that? Because it's also telling them that their progression is important to me,
yep,
and it's something they named as a goal. So I just like to follow them up. I'm not necessarily holding them accountable for it, but I'm letting them know that their goals are my focus too, and I care about those, and I'm going to help them and support them and be their cheerleader and their champion behind them doing things they want to succeed in or outside of the office, right?
yeah. I like the idea a lot of like checking in with them. Like all of those are really good examples, or just the idea of like I don't really have a lot, but I still want to take 5 minutes with them and just check in with them as people, and maybe ask about these non-rock related types things, or rocks that would be not maybe the one they're working on right now, but one they're sort of prepping to down the road. We're like, like personal development or continuing education. Those are really, really great topics to just sort of open it to saying, I want to make sure you understand that I'm interested in your development
Yeah.
as a person and as a employee and as a subject matter expert. Always valuable to all of us, frankly. We talked about this last week, I think it was, of just like your subject matter expertise development is so good for you as an employee, like your ability in your career to develop. But me as an employer, like, hey, look, you do this part really exceptionally well, but there's a lot of technology shifts and advancements and things going on, and being abreast of those things and figuring out what the next layer is. We can both do that together, and I think that's a great one-on-one topic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I was thinking about one of my clients who, when I asked him, "Are you doing one-on-ones?" and they said, "Absolutely." I said, "Okay, tell me how that goes." And they said, "Well, I've got this person and this person, and we're having, and we do a one-on-one." And I said, "You had the two people that are reporting to you in one meeting, and he's like, "Yeah, that's that's our one-on-one." I'm like, "Mm, nope, that's a 2-on-1 or
that is
1-on-2
what we
or
call a team meeting. Yeah, that was your
that,
leadership team.
that's a leadership meeting. That is
Yeah,
not a one-on-one. They were
no,
trying to check that box. You were talking about checking boxes. They were trying to
it's like
check
a
that
two on
box, and I
one.
do them, right?
Yep, I'm super efficient. I'm doing this together. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
are. Except neither one of these people can vent to you about the other.
yeah,
You don't have the opportunity to squash any problems or rumors or help them work through the communication problems or whatever, because
right.
there always will be. I mean, so you
Yeah,
don't have any opportunities to truly solve their problems or help them solve their problems as their leader. You're actually disservicing yourself in that moment,
yeah,
because you're like, hey, I couldn't help you and really get through the hardest part other than being able to give you both direction at the same time. Let's, I don't know. I mean, it's a leadership team meeting or departmental, however you want to classify it. That's not one on
exactly.
one.
And I bet you in this case, you don't know this person, but I bet you this person had his agenda and ripped off every one of the topics on his agenda, and they didn't even get input, or they got very little input. And so
100%. Yes.
that's people are trained to shut down in group meetings. They're trained to shut down in group meetings because they're trained to respect and hear other people's voices. And so people who a lot of times have great ideas, they'll shut up until it's their turn or till called on because they don't want to be disrespectful to everybody else.
Yeah, I think this is really this is a great conversation right here. So they are, because we're default in a lot of cases to be like, my superior is speaking, so what they
Yes.
say is important. And they're setting direction right now, even though they may not say explicitly, my direction is do this.
Yeah.
They're influencing direction. And the down is, unless that those people have extremely good communication skills and big personalities where they're willing to have very open, transparent conversations because that's just who they are, maybe then they can get away with it if they're both like that and don't feel like that's a competition. But
Right.
most likely, somebody in that room is an introvert and is absolutely going to be like, I'm done talking. And
Mhm.
it's contrary to what people will say, probably listening to this show. I'm more of an introvert. And in meetings where a CEO is giving direction, I often, if this is a big room full of people, I like to internalize, think through, and process, because my strategy is not going to come out of the box in 2 minutes. It's just not. And so I like the opportunity to think through things. And so I'm like, I want to know about agenda items ahead of time. So I'm like, that's an interesting topic. What do I think about that as we go into it? And if somebody with a strong personality is in that room, they're going to control that whole thing. And I'm never going to be able to, I'm influencing it after the fact. And that's much harder to do. But,
Yeah.
but
Which is why that one-on-one is so, I mean, we're basically making the argument. It's the flip of a one-on-one. Is
absolutely.
that's why that person, it's their time. They're the audience, it's their podium, their soapbox, it's their microphone. And I drive that home because by God, these things are hijacked almost every time I've seen them. And uh, I'm the last thing that I have here is what I've been asked several times on these meetings is this part, Trice. They want to know how often you should do them.
Mm,
And I've seen systems taught out there that say weekly. Um, when I bring up one-on-ones, the CEOs or leadership teams, they immediately gravitate towards I'll do it once a quarter,
mm,
maybe once a month. And so there is no like hard fast rules on these one-on-ones. And I
yeah.
should have said that at the beginning of the show. Like, hey, there isn't unless you're following a system that says you got to do it this specific way. There really is a lot of different ways to do these, but
Yep.
what I've given today is like it's the overall idea behind them, right? And why you do them and how some basic rules of engagement with employees during these one-on-ones.
Yeah.
So those things I think should be done most of the time. But
Yeah.
here's how often I say to do them. I say weekly if it's needed, if you've got a lot going on
Yeah.
and that person is constantly needing oversight, like a new employee, an intern, somebody young in their business, they want that mentorship, right? Or I've found that with the average everyday employees that are working for you, I found that weekly is almost too much.
Yeah.
And then you got too much like downtime and it's hard to get them all in.
I
Twice
think
a
if you
month,
can,
every other week is my
yep.
go-to. It's every other week is perfect. I put them on the calendar, I book them out, and I try not to move them, and I show up.
Yeah, I like that. I was thinking through this because as I said earlier, I haven't necessarily done these one-on-ones well. And it's been this blend of sort of like stand-up subject matter type meetings, production type meetings, department type meetings, and one-on-one meetings. And I think if you can do depending on the number of people you have and how many projects you have going on, if you can do like a combination of like stand-up weekly stand-up meetings on
Yeah.
topics or projects and a one-on-one every other week with a person that's kind of a gauge for them and the subject and whatever topics, and and then maybe like a monthly departmental sort of meeting, or how a production meeting and stuff, that type of thing in there somewhere. You can find a good cadence and you can find a good balance in there. But you're right. I think it's really interesting. Certain types of employees may need this a little more. New employees, people that need direction, people who are maybe experiencing a change in their career, a shift in
Mhm.
skill set or expertise
New
or
role. You-
responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can see that. Um, I think you'll start to get a feel for it too. As long as you keep doing them consistently, you'll start to feel like, okay, we've gotten to a place where this is really kind of like a 5-minute check-in with somebody. So now maybe I go every other week,
Yes.
and
That's
now
usually
I,
the sign.
yeah, and that way you can get a sense for it, as a leader. That's part of your job. I mean, it's funny when you're in, I talk about my role specifically a lot with people when I speak to them about marketing, but the real truth of it is that's maybe 25% of my job, the real strategy, marketing part, translating problems, those kinds of things. 25 or 50% is keeping things moving. Are we managing our work well?
Mhm.
What, hurdles? And 25% really should be focused on people.
Yeah.
And and most people are never that close,
It's funny you bring this up because like that's what people always want management. They want to be a manager. They think that's this next step up from being a worker, right? They want to go into management.
Yeah.
They don't realize that that step means you are are stepping out of doing the day-to-day stuff. Like you're now not going to be the doer. You're now going to be the people person. You're going to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And you got to be ready to people. You've got
And
to
it's
be
hard.
ready to, and these one-on-one meetings are a part of it. And it's going to start taking over. If you go another layer up, even more people. And your
Yep.
time starts to go where you're not doing anything specifically, but you are truly managing people. And
Yep.
so it's not always what people think it is when they get that increase, but on the cadence of when you do these meetings, let's walk backwards with it for a second.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the employee's shoes. Um, let's say that I did it once every 6 months. That what is okay? What if I didn't do it at all that year? Okay, maybe I should have started there.
Yeah.
Once every 6 months, you don't actually say anything. Why? Because everything that's important became non-important because you basically said it wasn't important when you only met with them that time frame.
Yep.
And these one-on-ones are not reviews, people. They're not your reviews.
Yeah. That's
Don't don't
outside of this. Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
do. I should have brought that one up too at the beginning. It's not
Yep.
a review. And so if you do it quarterly, that means 4 times out of the year, 4 times in this whole 365 days, 4 hours out of that 365 days, you decided to tell that person they're important by doing this one-on-one meeting.
Mm.
Wow, that's an insult.
Yes.
Once once
Yeah.
a month. Now we're getting somewhere. Once a month having that one-on-one time, but I think again now I'm not really bringing much to the table because everything that I had I've already had to work through or just completely throw that idea away because it's already done and gone.
Yeah. I think once a month is the bare minimum.
Yes.
And only you can, I'd say this, if you could probably get away with once a month if you had other meetings and they were also very productive. They were very well
Yes.
organized,
Yeah.
because then you could say, okay, well, we have a departmental meeting. We have which departmental meetings are essentially top down for the most part. It's a little back and forth, but it's very much driven by the leader. You have stand-ups, which are typically project or area of focus, which, okay, if you do those regularly and well, you minimize your sort of need for one-on-one in a lot of ways. But even in that case,
Yeah.
monthly is a bare minimum, and you're sort of sending a signal, and especially if you do one-on-ones differently for different people, you're sending a clear signal. You're sort of important to me.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Like,
I
I
haven't
need you to be
I haven't
here and
completely forgot
work.
about you.
Yeah, I need you to.
I've not completely forgot about you.
Yeah,
You're
you're on
still
my
there.
radar, but you're not number one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and also if you're doing every other week or weekly with other people and monthly with other people, it's a clear signal. These people need more attention. They require more from me. They're more important. What they do is therefore more important for me than you. And that is a horrible decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna do my wrap up here because we're out of
Yeah.
time. Because believe it or not,
Yes.
I actually do work. I actually have clients. Can you believe this?
So people who
Actually,
don't know us, our normal podcast is like an hour long, and also we talk for 30 before and 30 after easily, just because we're both
yep.
total talkers. And today we can't be. We actually have hard stops, so
Yeah. Sorry,
we
people.
tighten yeah we tightened it up a little bit, which is
Sorry.
good.
Trying to stay on
Good.
track here.
Yeah.
So my keys for this would be you work for them. Go into your one-on-ones thinking that, and that'll position you in the right frame of mind. Don't hijack their meeting. Sometimes you want to, but don't hijack their meeting. It's their meeting. Let them lead, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would tell them to bring an agenda ahead of time. Keep track of the things you want to talk about. Keep it on a notebook paper. Keep it on your notes on your phone, so that when you have that one-on-one, you actually have the topics lined up. Okay.
Yep.
So it could be business or personal, combination of whatever. Let them
Right.
choose. But they should be able to bring up something that's happening at home and feel comfortable doing that versus hiding it if it's affecting their work. It's worth noting everybody has, empathy and compassion about things that happen at home. And so letting your manager know that is a really, really good human thing to do. It's because you'll see their human side come out. And if you don't, and if they don't respond appropriately and they're rude, well, then go work somewhere else. Find somewhere else to work, right? And then just be present for your people. Shut down, be present, look in the eyes, and be there for them, and truly be a support. And always lead with love. Lead with kindness, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
But that's my last thoughts of the day. Trice, any last words of wisdom?
That's great. I love it, and thanks for bringing up a good topic. It's another good example. I will say this is, we've spent a lot of time on this show talking about process and meetings and things that people just probably would not think of being sexy topics at all. But I think the key that keeps coming out in them is you have to do so many of these things with intent and with purpose, and you have to be pretty kind of focused on them, because they are the foundation for you being able to grow your business and focus on your business the way you want to. Because good communication with the people you work with, giving them the appreciation that they need, and showing them that you value them. I mean, frankly, that's the cornerstone to them helping you be smart about what you do and grow your business. And that's what every CEO in the world wants.
Yep.
Great.
Well, in that note, I'll take us out the way that we came in with, with a little George Michael. All right. I look forward to next week. Join us again. Thanks.
Thank you.